Have US-Russian negotiations faltered over the Ukraine war? Is Putin prepared to fight Trump if he wants a nuclear war? Donald Trump cut short the peace deadline and deployed nuclear submarines without any warning. American warships started aggressive maneuvers and spy planes flew over Eastern Europe. The message was clear. America was ready to fight. But what happened next? Putin didn't back down. In fact, Russian air raids on Ukraine became even more brutal, and Russian forces moved closer to the border. In a situation like this, it's natural for the world to wonder, is this a limited war, or are we witnessing the opening act of World War III?
To really understand why things escalated, we need to take a step back. Look at how the relationship between Trump and Putin went from mutual praise to mutual threats.
The US-Russia relationship has always been rocky. But when two major figures like Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin get involved directly, the tension rises to a much more dangerous level. At the start of Trump's second term, their relationship seemed friendly. They praised each other and sent positive signals. Even during Trump's first term, he was known to have a closer personal relationship with Putin than any other foreign leader. Many believed that if anyone could keep Putin in check, it was Trump. But that closeness is now a thing of the past.
Trump tried to use this connection to offer a ceasefire in Ukraine. Putin agreed, but instead of backing down, Moscow imposed stricter and stricter conditions. Air raids increased sharply. These were honestly the worst since the invasion began.
Trump's anger exploded. He issued a strong statement. If Putin didn't stop the war, shocking and severe sanctions would follow. The deadline for agreeing to a ceasefire was shortened to just 10 to 12 days. The world started to worry. This wasn't just a normal political bluff.
But Putin ignored it. In response, Russia launched a series of drone and missile attacks on Kyiv. At least 28 people were killed. The violent, dramatic retaliation didn't stop there.
Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev added fuel to the fire. On social media, he threatened Trump with direct war. Trump didn't stay silent. He warned Medvedev to be careful, saying his words could have very serious consequences. This time, Trump's warning wasn't empty talk. 2 American nuclear submarines appeared near Russian waters. Ballistic missile systems were put on alert. There were even signs of a system called Dathan being involved. Russia's automatic nuclear strike protocol came under tight scrutiny. What started as purely political tension turned into a nuclear power struggle.
So why does Russia keep advancing despite all the harsh threats, even with the threat of 100% tariffs? Why does Putin stay calm while his army gets more aggressive? The answer is simple. Sanctions no longer affect Russia like they used to. In fact, trade between Russia and the US dropped by 90% in 2021. So even if America pushes the maximum sanctions button, it barely impacts Russia.
Why? Because Russia's money no longer comes from the West. Their main source of foreign currency, oil and gas, is bought by non-Western countries like China, India and Brazil, countries already growing closer to Russia. These economic powers are starting to create their own systems independent of the dollar and Western pressure.
The more America pressures, the more Russia relies on this new axis, BRICS and the Middle East. But it's not just economic. Russia also holds the military upper hand. Its forces keep advancing, especially in eastern Ukraine. In northern Pokrovsky, they've already taken the village of Suket. This isn't a force being pushed back, it's a force under pressure.
And don't forget, from Russia's perspective, this invasion isn't aggression, it's reclamation. Putin insists Russia isn't taking new land, they're recovering what was originally theirs, territories that were part of the Soviet Union. For Putin, this is a historic mission, not just a political strategy.
So when Trump talks about sanctions, Putin talks about legacy. When America talks about isolation, Russia sees an opportunity to flip the global order. That's why, to this day, all Western threats sound like empty words in the Kremlin.
Russia may not fear them, but America isn't standing still either. When sanctions don't work, America speaks the same language, military power. From that moment, the threat of a world war started looming.
After diplomacy failed and the ceasefire didn't work, America stepped in. Military aid to Ukraine ramped up again. Weapons, logistics, and even active intelligence were sent in huge amounts. Things got even tenser when Sochi, a major city in southern Russia, was attacked by drones. A big oil depot caught fire.
A few hours later, A US Navy surveillance plane, a P-8 Poseidon, was flying low over the Black Sea near the Russian coast. This was no longer just a proxy war, it was a direct confrontation.
NATO made a move. Troops were deployed on Europe's eastern flank, and Poland, Romania, and the Baltic states started gearing up fully with combat equipment. But Russia saw this as a provocation. The Kremlin called it a direct threat to Russian security, and Russia's response wasn't a joke.
Putin deployed the latest hypersonic missile, the Avangard, in Belarus, right on NATO's doorstep. This missile is claimed to be unstoppable by any existing defense system. At the same time, Russia moved its flagship nuclear submarine, the Knyaz Pozarsky, to the 31st Submarine Squadron in the Northern Fleet. This sub is armed with Bulava nuclear missiles. One missile can destroy a major city in minutes.
All this happened because of one thing. America moved its tactical nuclear weapons to the UK. One wrong move or one stray shot could escalate into a global conflict. And when that happens, no country will be safe.
The world is now at a critical turning point. The slightest move could spark a fire. With two nuclear powers so close to each other, the nightmare scenario is becoming a real possibility. If things keep going like this, the world could head down one of two paths: escalation or de-escalation.
Let's start with the darker option, escalation. For Russia, NATO troops in Poland moving tactical nuclear weapons to the UK and American subs near its waters aren't just provocations, they're existential threats.
According to Russian military doctrine, if a country faces a threat to its existence, using nuclear weapons is justified. That means if Moscow feels its red lines have been crossed, it might launch hypersonic missiles like the Avangard or strategic nuclear missiles like the Bulava sooner than expected.
And of course, the response won't be silent. America and NATO have counterattack systems, and if that happens, the world could actually enter a third world war scenario.
But there's still hope. De-escalation. One way forward is mediation by a trusted third party, like China or even India. Both have good relations with Moscow and are respected by Washington.
Also, global public pressure could act as an emergency brake. International protests, another economic crisis, and pressure from non-aligned countries might force both sides back to the negotiation table.
Because one thing's clear, if neither side really wants to de-escalate, the world could lose control. And once that happens, there's no turning back from global